This is the third night. We are talking on the Samyutta Nikaya Suttas. We are still on the first Samyutta, Devata Samyutta. So now we come to Sutta number 1.41, the 41st Sutta in the Devata Samyutta. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Then, when the night had advanced, a certain Devata of stunning beauty, illuminating the entire Jeta's Grove, approached the Blessed One. Having approached, he paid homage to the Blessed One, stood to one side, and recited these verses in the presence of the Blessed One. So the Devata said this: when one's house is ablaze, the vessel taken out is the one that is useful, not the one left burnt inside. So when the world is ablaze with the fires of aging and death, one should take out one's wealth by giving. What is given is well salvaged or saved. What is given yields pleasant fruit, but not so what is not given. Thieves take it away, or kings. It gets burned by fire or is lost. Then in the end, one leaves the body along with one's possessions. Having understood this, the wise person should enjoy himself but also give. Having given and enjoyed as fits his means, blameless he goes to the heavenly state. It's the end of the sutta. So here the Deva is saying, just like when a house is burning, you take out your goods, then you have saved it, you can use it. So similarly, in this world, if we give, it's like saving our goods. What is given, we can make use of it in the future life. So a lot of people are selfish. They hoard on to their property, and when they die, they can't even take 1 cent along with them, and it does not appear to them in their next life. But whatever we give away, karma is such, all that we give away comes back to us in the next lifetime. That's why charity, generosity is so important. 1.42, the Devata said, giving what does one give strength? Giving what does one give beauty? Giving what does one give ease or happiness? Giving what does one give sight? Who is the giver of all? Being asked, please explain to me. So this Deva is asking the Buddha this question. To get strength, what should you give? To get beauty, what should you give? To get happiness or ease, what should you give? To get sight, what should you give, etc. Then the Buddha said, giving food, one gives strength. Giving clothes, one gives beauty. Giving a vehicle, one gives ease or happiness. Giving a lamp, one gives sight. The one who gives a residence, a lodging, is the giver of all. But the one who teaches the Dhamma is the giver of the deathless. That's the end of the sutta. So when we give food, we give strength. When we take food, we are strong. So the giver will get back strength. When we give clothes, we make somebody beautiful, we also become beautiful as a result. When we give happiness, when we give a vehicle, then we give ease or happiness, ease of transport. According to the commentary, here a vehicle includes elephants, horses, umbrellas, sandals, walking sticks, palanquins, mending of roads, making of stairways, making of ships, causeways, etc. And then if a person gives a lodging, he gives all. Lodging is quite important. That's why of the material gifts that we can give, the highest is to build a monastery. Because when you build a monastery, you give lodging to the Sangha of monks, and then the Sangha can continue, can perpetuate. And if there's Sangha around, then there's also the Dhamma. And if you include immaterial things, then the highest gift is the gift of the Dhamma. And here it says, when you give Dhamma, you're giving the deathless. Because that is the way to the deathless state, where there is no more self, there is no dying. So you can only achieve that when you learn the Dhamma. Without learning the Dhamma, you can never achieve the deathless, the Buddha's Dhamma. Now we come to the next sutta, 1.46. Deva said to the Buddha, resounding with a host of nymphs, haunted by a host of demons, this grove is to be called deluding. How does one escape from it? There's a story, I'm not sure how true it is. According to the commentaries, this Deva was actually a monk in the previous life. And because he heard that the Buddha was very ascetic, practiced all the austerities, so he also practiced extremely hard. And as a result of being too ascetic, he passed away. He died. So after he passed away, he was reborn in this heaven of the 33, Tavatimsa heaven. And he found himself in the Nandana grove, a grove of sensual delight, sensual pleasures. And he was surrounded by all these beautiful heavenly nymphs. And he was shocked. What he thought, how come he was up here? He didn't know that he passed away. So the Devis brought a big mirror for him to see. And he looked into the mirror, then he realized that he was a Deva. But he was not happy because he was inside an ascetic monk. So instead of being happy there, he immediately flew down to find the Buddha. Then he said these verses, that Nandana grove resounds with the host of nymphs, celestial nymphs. And then instead of finding it pleasurable, instead of calling it Nandana, he called it Mohana, from the word Moha, delusion. That's why I said this grove is to be called deluding. And then he asked the Buddha how to escape from it. Then the Buddha gave these verses. According to this Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, I read for you. The straight way, that path is called, and fearless is its destination. The chariot is called unrattling, fitted with wheels of wholesome states. The sense of shame is its leaning board, mindfulness its upholstery. I call the Dhamma the charioteer, the right view running out in front. One who has such a vehicle, whether a woman or a man, has by means of this vehicle drawn close to Nibbana. But actually I will read for you the earliest translation by the Pali Text Society, because to me it sounds very beautiful. According to this Pali Text translation, straight is the name that road is called, and free from fear the quarter whither thou art bound. Thy chariot is the silent runner named, with wheels of righteous effort fitted well. Conscience the leaning board, the drapery is heedfulness, the driver is the Dhamma, I say, and right views they that run before. And be it woman, be it man, for whom such chariot doth wait, by that same car into Nibbana's presence shall they come. So this Pali Text Society, must remember these people who translated the books for the Pali Text Societies, most of them were professors. So their command of English was excellent. So that's why they could write these verses so well. So the Buddha is saying, this is the way to Nibbana, straight way, free from fear, wheels of righteous effort, energetic effort. And you need conscience, and you need heedfulness. The driver is the Dhamma, and right view is the one that is leading. You got to have right view in front. And then if you go by such a vehicle, you will come to Nibbana. 1.47. Deva asks, for whom does merit always increase, both by day and by night? Who are the people going to heaven, established in Dhamma, endowed with virtue? And I guess the Buddha replied, those who set up a park or a grove, the people who construct a bridge, a place to drink and a well, those who give a residence. For them merit always increases, both by day and by night. Those are the people going to heaven, established in Dhamma, endowed with virtue. So here the Buddha is saying that if we do a lot of good deeds to benefit a lot of people, like in this case, setting up a park or a grove, construct a bridge, a place for people to drink, residence for people. So this reminds us of Sakadeva Raja, because Sakadeva Raja mentioned that as a human being, he did all these good deeds, build roads for people, build bridge, and all, helping people generally. So he was born as a Deva Raja. Of course, he had a lot of other good qualities, like never getting angry, filial to the parents, respect for elders, etc. Now, 1.49, Devata said, those who are stingy here in the world, niggardly folk, revilers, people who create obstacles for others engage in giving alms, what kind of result do they reap? What kind of future destiny? We've come to ask the Blessed One this. How are we to understand it? So here this Devata is asking people who obstruct others from doing charity, what is the result? And the Buddha said, those who are stingy here in the world, niggardly folk, revilers, people who create obstacles for others engage in giving alms, they might be reborn in hell, in the animal realm, or Yama's world. If they come back to the human state, they are born in a poor family, where clothes, food, pleasures, and sport are obtained only with difficulty. Whatever the fools may expect from others, even that they do not obtain. This is the result in this very life, and in the future a bad destination. And then the Devata said, we understand thus what you have said. We ask, O Gotama, another question. Those here who, on gaining the human state, are amiable and generous, confident in the Buddha and Dhamma, and deeply respectful towards the Sangha, what kind of result do they reap? What kind of future destiny? We've come to ask the Blessed One this. How are we to understand it? And the Buddha said, those here who, on gaining the human state, are amiable and generous, confident in the Buddha and the Dhamma, and deeply respectful towards the Sangha, these brighten up the heavens where they have been reborn. If they come back to the human state, they are reborn in a rich family, where clothes, food, pleasures, and sport are obtained without difficulty. They rejoice like the Devas who control the goods amassed by others. This is the result in this very life, and in the future a good destination. So here the Buddha is saying, if somebody obstructs people doing charity, then they, in this very life, what they want also they cannot get. And in the future life, they will be born into one of the three woeful realms, the ghost realm, animal, or hell realm. As another person has faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and follows the Dhamma, then he, in this very life itself, what he makes an effort to get, he can get, and in the future lifetime, is born in heaven. Where we are reborn, what we get, all depends on our karma. 1.52. What is good by not decaying? What is good when made secure? What is the precious gem of humans? What cannot be stolen by thieves? And the Buddha said, virtue is good by not decaying. Faith is good when made secure. Wisdom is the precious gem of humans. Merit cannot be stolen by thieves. So the Buddha here is saying, virtue does not decay if you have virtue. And then faith, If it is good faith, secure faith, then it is good for you, beneficial. And wisdom is the precious gem of humans. It's one very valuable thing that we should aim for, possess. And if you have merit from good karma, thieves cannot steal it away. You will bring it with you wherever you go, even in a future lifetime. 1.55. What is it that produces a person? What does he have that runs around? What enters upon samsara? What is his greatest fear? Samsara is, as you know, the round of rebirths, birth and death. And then the Buddha said, it is craving that produces a person. His mind is what runs around. A being enters upon samsara. Suffering is his greatest fear. So it is craving that produces a person. A person is born because of craving. And his person, his mind is what is running all around. A being enters upon samsara. This round of rebirths is for Putujana, ordinary beings, because you feel there is a self, there is a being. So you see yourself in your dreams, because existence is like a dream. Consciousness produces this world. So when there is a being, then there is samsara. Being is bhava, paccaya, jati. There's a being, then it produces birth or rebirth. Suffering is the greatest fear of beings. All beings fear suffering, we only want happiness. 1.71. At Savatthi, standing to one side, that Devata addressed the Blessed One in verse. Having slain what, does one sleep soundly? Having slain what, does one not sorrow? What is the one thing, O Gotama, whose killing you approve? And the Buddha said, having slain anger, one sleeps soundly. Having slain anger, one does not sorrow. The killing of anger, O Devata, with its poison root and honey tip, this is the killing the noble ones praise. For having slain that, one does not sorrow. So the Buddha recommends killing of anger. If we have a lot of anger, we cannot sleep soundly. And if we have a lot of anger, we have a lot of sorrow or suffering. The Buddhas, the noble ones praise the killing of anger. But this anger is very hard to kill because this anger is connected with the ego. As long as we have the ego and things don't go our way, when we cannot get what we want, then it is natural for anger to arise. Anger towards the people who obstruct you from getting what you want. One way to lessen your anger is to be more contented, to have not to have too strong ambitions or desires. If you have very strong desires and ambitions, then if you cannot get it, then you get extremely frustrated. But if you are a contented person, then what comes your way, you're happy. What does not come your way, also you're contented. Then in which case, you won't have so much anger. The other way, in fact, the best way to kill anger is to practice meditation. And meditation in the Buddha's teachings is almost always Samata, the cultivation of Samadhi. When a person attains even Upachara Samadhi, which is threshold concentration, or assess concentration, Jin Xing Ting, just before you attain the first jhana, when you attain Upachara Samadhi, the mind already becomes tranquil, and the five hindrances clear away, and you will notice the anger drops drastically. Anger and lust. Anger and lust are the passions. In the suttas, the Buddha says even external sex ascetics, when they attain jhana, then they become passionless. Passionless meaning the anger and the lust has become very small, very low. So this is the best way to kill anger by Samadhi, a tranquil mind, a calm mind. Because when you attain a calm mind, then you feel so nice. And even if you have reason to get angry, you don't feel like getting angry because you don't want to get into an agitated, disturbed, unhappy state. You want to maintain your bliss, you want to maintain your happiness. So you don't want to be ruffled. So even you have reason to get angry, so you don't want to get angry. So that's why Samadhi is so helpful. And the other thing is understanding the Dhamma. When we understand the Dhamma, then we know that anger is not good for us. There's a lot of disadvantages of anger. Anger is one of the poisons. If we have anger, then it upsets our system. We get migraine, we get headache, we get sick. A lot of sickness comes because of our mental condition. If we are mentally healthy, then we are also physically healthy. A lot of people are physically unhealthy because they are mentally unhealthy. So the mental happiness, the mental health is extremely important. 1.73. What here is a man's best treasure? What practice well brings happiness? What is really the sweetest of tastes? How lives the one whom they say lives best? And the Buddha replied, faith is here a man's best treasure. Dhamma practice well brings happiness. Truth is really the sweetest of tastes. One living by wisdom, they say, lives best. Faith here means the faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. And that is a good treasure to possess. And then if you practice the Dhamma well, then you are a happy person. Happy in this life and happy in the future lives. Dhamma is the extremely precious thing that we can get. Truth is the sweetest of tastes. If we are very truthful, we are always don't have remorse. We have principles. The Buddha said, if a person is not truthful, if a person can lie, then he is a shameless person. He can do anything. If a person has a sense of shame, then he will not lie. One living by wisdom lives best. If we are guided by wisdom, whatever we do also, we do correctly. We make the right decisions because we have wisdom. If we don't have wisdom, then we make mistake after mistake. And that then we will have a miserable life. 1.76. The Deva asked, what decays? What does not decay? What is declared the deviant path? What is the impediment to wholesome states? What undergoes destruction night and day? What is the stain of the holy life? What is the bath without water? How many fishes are there in the world, wherein the mind does not stand firm? We have come to ask the Blessed One this. How are we to understand it? So here is asking a few questions. What is the impediment to wholesome state? What are the obstructions to wholesome states? How many fissures are there in the world? How many cracks, clefts are there in the world, wherein the mind does not stand firm? Then the Buddha replied, the physical form of mortals decays. Their name and clan does not decay. Lust is declared the deviant path. Greed the impediment to wholesome states. Life undergoes destruction night and day. Women are the stain of the holy life. Here's where menfolk are enmeshed. Austerity and the holy life, that is the bath without water. That's the end. One more. There are 6 fissures in the world, wherein the mind does not stand firm. Laziness and negligence, indolence, lack of self-control, drowsiness and lethargy. Avoid these fissures completely. So here the Buddha says, the physical form of mortals decay. All beings have a body, and this body must decay. But the name and the clan does not decay. Lust is the deviant path. Excessive greed is the deviant path. Greed, the impediment to wholesome states. If we are greedy, greedy to satisfy our senses, that is obstruction to wholesome states. And life undergoes destruction night and day. Because life is impermanent. That is the strongest characteristic of the world, of the life. Anicca, impermanence. Life undergoes destruction night and day. Women are the stain of the holy life. So if a person wants to practice the holy life, the opposite sex, he has to go far away from the opposite sex. Otherwise, a person cannot practice the holy life. And then austerity and the holy life, that is bath without water. Bath without water means purification without needing water. We clean ourselves without using water by austerity, ascetic practice, and practicing the holy life. Then there are 6 fissures or 6 cracks in the world which makes the mind unstable. The mind cannot stand firm. Laziness is one. Negligence, carelessness, another one. Indolence, no energy to act. Lack of self-control, that means undisciplined. A lot of people don't have discipline. Drowsiness and lethargy, feeling sleepy, no energy. So the Buddha said, avoid these completely. We want to progress. These are the 6 obstructions in the spiritual path. Laziness, carelessness, indolence, no discipline, drowsiness, lethargy. The Buddha's advice is very practical. The last sutta, 1.81, in the first Samyutta, in the first chapter. Who here in the world are blessed, peaceful? Whose mode of life is not squandered? Who here fully understands desire? Who enjoys perpetual freedom? Whom do parents and brothers worship when he stands firmly established? Who is the one of humble birth, that even Khatyas or nobles here salute? And the Buddha replied, ascetics are blessed in the world. The ascetic life is not squandered. Ascetics fully understand desire. They enjoy perpetual freedom. Parents and brothers worship an ascetic when he stands firmly established. Though an ascetic be of humble birth, even Khatyas or warriors, the warrior, the noble clan, here salute him. And that's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha said, ascetics or renunciants are peaceful people in the world. And the holy life, if one leads the holy life, then he's not squandered his life, he has not wasted his life. Actually, that is the best way to lead our life, practicing the holy path. And we put our life as the best use. Instead of chasing after all the material things in the world that are impermanent, that we cannot bring along with us in the next rebirth. Whereas if we practice the holy life, and all the benefits that we get from it, we can bring along to our next rebirth. Ascetics fully understand desire. They enjoy perpetual freedom. So if a person practices a holy life, he understands that desire, craving is dangerous. So he tries to be free from desire. And then parents and brothers worship an ascetic when he stands firmly established. Here is quite interesting. If a family has a son that goes forth, then that son becomes a holy person, then the parents and the brothers also pay respect to him, worship him. This is very unlike the Mahayana, this one sutta about filial piety, where it starts off by saying the Buddha was wandering in the forest with his monks, and then he came across a skeleton, and then the Buddha bowed down to that skeleton, and Ananda asked him, people in the world bow to you, Bhagavan, why do you bow to this skeleton? Then according to that sutra, the Buddha said, oh Ananda, you have shallow wisdom. You don't understand. This skeleton could have been my mother or my father in the past life. That kind of teaching is totally incompatible with the earliest teachings of the Buddha, like here. Right? Like the Buddha, after the Buddha has become enlightened, his parents worship him, pay respect to him. He does not go and worship his parents. A person is worthy of respect when he is virtuous, not because of blood or something like that. So I think for tonight I stop here as far as the suttas are concerned, because I only prepared up to here. If you have any questions, we can discuss. A person obstructs others from doing charity when he discourages the person from doing charity, when he talks bad about doing charity, saying that it's useless, there is no good will come out of your doing charity, and when he encourages people not to do charity, in those ways he obstructs people from practicing charity. So he will suffer in this very life and in the future life. So like in the suttas we find that the external ascetics, many of them were jealous of the Buddha because the Buddha became famous. So because the Buddha and his monks were famous, they had a lot of offerings. Whereas external ascetics, they did not practice so well, they did not keep good sila, they did not meditate well, they did not have wisdom. So they had little offerings. So because of jealousy, they told lay people that the Buddha always claims that you should only do offerings, offer things only to the Buddha and his disciples. Don't offer to other ascetics. But the Buddha said he doesn't do that, because if a person does that, you obstruct others from doing charity, then you are doomed, this life and the future life. You will suffer for it. And in fact, in one of the suttas, there's a General Siha. He was a follower of the Nigantas, or the Jains. And after he came to see the Buddha and talk to the Buddha, he converted and became a follower of the Buddha. Then the Buddha told him that he should still do charity towards these Nigantas. So he was very happy that the Buddha said that, because he said that he heard the opposite, that the Buddha said that people should only make offerings to the Buddha and his disciples. If a person does charity, the Buddha says that that dana or that charity that we do should not harm ourselves and should not harm others. So you can advise that person this Dhamma teaching of the Buddha, but you cannot tell that person not to give. Some people they are generous to the extent that they overdo it. But actually it is good for them. They have to suffer a bit. It's good for them because they will, the reward that will come to them will be a lot. For example, the Buddha talked about one sutta because somebody asked the Buddha, if a person, say, for example, does business, and then he expects to get, for example, like $1,000, just example, $1,000 a month. There are various types of people. One type of person, when he does business, he expects to get $1,000 a month. He may fail miserably. He may not make any profit at all. Even his capital also he might lose. In other words, he does not make even $1. Or he makes a very small profit, $50 a month instead of the 1,000 he expected. And then on the other hand, there's another person, he expects to make 1,000 a month, he might make less than that lah. But say not too far away lah, like 800 ringgit a month, okay, or 500 ringgit a month lah. That's the second one. The third one, he expects to make $1,000 a month, and he gets $1,000 a month lah. Okay, and then the fourth one, although he expects 1,000, he makes much more than that lah. He might get 5,000 or 10,000 instead of 1,000 a month lah. This man wants the Buddha to explain why. The Buddha said, it might be that this person wanted to offer something to a virtuous monk, a virtuous ascetic. And the first time is he says he wants to offer something. Maybe he asks the monk, what do you need? And the monk says he needs certain medicine or certain something. And after saying that he wants to get something for that monk, the ascetic, he does not give anything. Such a person, because he promised to give and he does not give anything, then in the future, when he expects to make money, he fails miserably, does not get at all. That is the result of making a promise and not fulfilling it. The second one is the person who promised to give a certain amount, say, of offerings, and then he gives less than what he promised. So the result is when he does business, he also gets less. Third one is he says he will give a certain amount and he gives exactly that amount. So he gets exactly what he expects to get. The fourth one, he says he wants to give something that he gives much more. So he gets much more. So in this case, when you talk about this person, his financial situation is not too good. And he gives more than what he should give. So next time, when karma comes back to him, maybe in the future rebirth, or maybe even in this life later on, he will get more than what he expects. Sometimes when we give advice also, we have to be very careful. We can give in such a way, but not obstruct him from giving. And not discourage him from giving also. Because if you obstruct him from giving, or you discourage him from giving, you are creating bad karma. So what you can do is teach him the Dhamma. Tell him that the Buddha says, when we do charity, it should not be to the extent when the giver suffers or he makes somebody else suffer. Because there are many instances in the Vinaya books. Our Vinaya books are like lawyers' law cases. Lawyers' court cases. Because there have been so many cases of monks breaking the discipline. So many different types of cases. It's all come out into the Vinaya books. So, for example, a person, a monk, in the Vinaya books, he saw some executioner going to execute somebody using the long sword, going to chop off his head. One monk, maybe he saw somewhere else, one executioner, he chopped somebody's head, but the head it was not a complete chop. So this fellow chopped his head and his head was hanging there. So he got to chop second time or third time before the head goes off. So this busybody thought he wanted to be more compassionate. He told the executioner, you execute him one blow only, one blow, chop off his head. So this executioner chopped off the man's head with one blow. So when this was reported to the Buddha said, it's parajika. He's a party to the killing. He's a party to the killing. He asked the executioner to execute him with one blow. So you see, so we have to be very careful, So in this case, like you want to help that person, to tell him, don't go beyond your means, but if you word it in such a way, then you are discouraging him from doing dana, you are creating bad karma. Yeah, that also when you tell your family member to be selective in their charity, that they should only give to organizations who are worthy of receiving. Also, you have to be very careful because sometimes we may not know the organization so well. So you can tell that family member to be careful. But you cannot tell him, you give to this one, don't give to that one and all that because he might not be making the right decision. Unless the person asks you. If the person asks you, then you can advise. Okay. Not necessary, because like in the monastery, we try not to spend too much time cooking so that you have more time to practice, one thing. Secondly, if you have many people in the kitchen cooking, very often there's friction. That is not desirable. But if you say you want to give away something that was given to the monastery, it's best to consult to get the okay from the abbot first. Instead of on your own giving this away, giving that away, you ask the abbot for permission, and the abbot says, okay, then you give away, it's okay. Like sometimes we have too much biscuits. So when the Ipoh people come on Saturday, we give them a lot of biscuits to give to orphanage and all that. But with permission, we don't give away things without permission. You can tell them, we don't guarantee that we will use it. If they ask, if they don't ask, then they just forget what they say. It's up to the women folk if they want to cook. But like this guy who offers organic veggie, that is good stuff, so good to keep. Not easy to get organic veggie. Yeah. Once you make that offering, or even you have the intention to offer already, you have the merit already. No, exactly, because sometimes you have the first thought but you don't do it. There are many steps to complete your charity, you see. So if you fulfill all the steps, then you get the full merit. But if you do halfway, then you get halfway merit. So in the same way, like in our Vinaya books, when it comes to committing a theft, the Buddha said, for example, if a monk goes into another monk's room to steal a watch, for example, the first intention he has to steal, that is already a small offense, small evil karma already. And then when he walks towards the room, that is more evil karma, but also small. Then when he opens the door, goes into the room, more evil karma. And when he touches the watch to take it away, that is more, even more evil karma. But the theft is completed according to Vinaya when he lifts the watch from the base, from the table. Once you lift it up, that is considered complete theft already. But for example, he touches the watch and wants to lift it up, suddenly he hears footsteps. Then he does not complete the theft. Then he runs away. So that is not parajika. Parajika is the highest, the heaviest penalty, heaviest offense for a monk, which he has to disrobe. So in this case, he has not completed. So every step along the way is contributes to that evil karma. So like you say you have the intention, but if you don't fulfill it, it's very small karma. Not as a monk. Not as a monk. Once he has broken the 4 parajikas, the 4 parajikas are the heaviest offense for a monk. The first one is engage in sexual intercourse. Second one is to steal something of value. Something of value nowadays would be, in the Buddha's days, was a certain amount of gold. So now we say like $20 US or something. Anything above $20 US, like 100 ringgit or something like that. If you intentionally steal, that is a prajika. The third one is killing a human being, or encouraging somebody else to kill a human being. For example, advising a woman to have an abortion. That also is considered a prajika. And then the fourth one is lying, that you have some supernormal attainment when you don't have. For example, lying that you have jhana when you don't have jhana. Lying that you are an arya when you are not an arya. Lying that you have psychic power. So, if a monk breaks any one of these four offenses, he is no more considered a monk. Even though he refuses to disrobe, he is already defeated. The English translation is defeated. The Chinese translation is like his head is chopped off already. I don't know what's the word. If the Sangha knows, the Sangha will force him to disrobe. But even if the Sangha does not know, he himself knows, inside he is no more a monk. You see, teaching the Dhamma is one thing, practicing the Dhamma is another. A lot of people, they teach, but they don't practice. The person who actually practices, but whether he practices or not, you don't know. It takes some time to know. That also is hard to say, whether they actually practice or not. We don't know. But if they really practice, then they can teach. Practice in the sense uphold all the Buddha's teachings, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Arya has dreams, but probably not an Arahant, because an Arahant has destroyed the asavas. Asavas are uncontrolled mental outflows. Uncontrolled mental outflows, where the consciousness flows without control. So dream state is a state where the consciousness flows without control. But in the Vinaya books, an Arahant has sati 24 hours a day. The Arahant has sati 24 hours a day. So because of that, I don't think Arahant, even if an Arahant, the mind like dreams, he will be aware, he will know that it's a dream. It's not like ordinary people. Most people, when we dream, we don't realize that we are dreaming. We think it's a real state. We get excited in the dream and all that. This asavas is very interesting, that nowadays hardly any monk explains. Hardly any monk explains. And you have so many meditation teachers teaching meditation, and meditation is supposed to be the way to enlightenment. And what is enlightenment? Enlightenment in the suttas is defined as destruction of the asavas. Destruction of the asavas. So my interpretation of asavas is uncontrolled mental outflows. That means basically uncontrolled flow of consciousness. It is this flow of consciousness which creates the world, which creates samsara. Once consciousness flows, then you see the world. The world exists for you. And in your conscious dream, you see yourself in that world. Just like when we dream at night. Whenever we dream at night, you see yourself in the dream. Right? So in the same way, when consciousness flows, the world arises. So this tendency for consciousness to flow is extremely strong. It's extremely strong. It is so strong that when you don't do anything, the mind starts to flow. You start to dream. You start to daydream. You start to think. Sometimes fantasizing and all that. Even at night, when you try to get some rest, the mind will not give you proper rest. It will start to flow and make you dream and get excited and frightened and all that. So when we practice meditation, we are trying to discipline our mind, not allow it to flow. That's why meditation, we train our mind to focus on one object. That is satipatthana, intense state of recollection. Always bring it back to one object, always stay with one object. That's why the simile given in the Satipatthana, Samyutta, later we will see how to practice Satipatthana. The Buddha gave a simile of the most beautiful girl of the land came out, and everybody clapped and shouted, the most beautiful girl of the land. And they asked her to sing and dance, and then more people came out to see her. And then an ordinary person came along, and he was caught by these villagers and forced to carry a bowl of oil, which was filled to the brim, filled to the top. And he was told that there's somebody walking behind him with an uplifted sword. If he spills the oil, even one drop of the oil, they will chop off his head. So he has to walk in between the crowd of people, and he has to pay attention on the bowl of oil. So his mindfulness is on the bowl, is one pointed attention, cannot go elsewhere. He cannot afford to look left, look right. He cannot afford to look at the beautiful girl. He has to pay total attention on the bowl of oil. And that is the way to practice Satipatthana. If we can discipline our mind to contemplate on one object, for example, on Anapanasati, mindfulness of the breath, always pulling it back to the breath, then we are training our mind to stay with one object. And if our mind can stay with one object, then it cannot flow. Now we have stopped the tendency of the mind to flow. So if we always train our mind to attain this state of one, when your mind dwells on one object without moving away, it's one pointed attention, one pointedness of mind, and that is called jhana. Jhana. The first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. So whenever we attain jhana, we are stopping the mind from flowing. That's why the way out of samsara this is the way. If you cannot stop your mind from flowing even for a short while, you have absolutely no hope of stopping this tendency of the mind to flow. That's why the Buddha says that the steps to enlightenment are the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana. There's so many suttas. There's one sutta where the Buddha talked about the coral tree, coral flower in the heavens, how it blooms. And the Buddha talked about the various stages of the flower blooming until it's fully bloomed. And then the Buddha gave a simile of a monk attaining the first jhana, second jhana, third, fourth jhana, and finally enlightenment. So the Buddha always calls the jhanas the footsteps of the Tathagata. That is the way out. So if you can train your mind to abide in jhana, then you have stopped the asava from flowing. Then there is a chance of stopping the asava permanently. And then when the asavas, the tendency of the mind to flow, this tendency, not the flow itself, the tendency is stopped completely, then a person attains enlightenment. So for an arahant, it's not that he does not have consciousness, he still has consciousness, but it is controlled consciousness. If an arahant thinks, it is controlled thinking. It is not scattered thinking.
When a person is in samadhi, strong samadhi, you can hear his own story because he's alert in very alert. In 4 hours. And when he is asleep, totally asleep, everything rested. Through the heart, you can see the belief. When there is belief approaching him, he sees from here. I think to know the person is strong samadhi. And usually the knowing by knowing, before a person starts to talk, he knows what is going to talk.
Yeah, but these states quite unusual. Only thing is, some of the states we cannot trust completely. There's some people in certain states they can see heaven, they can see hell, and all that. But sometimes it turns out to be imagination. So we can only trust the mind when person is fully enlightened. So we have to be very careful. In the Hindu tradition, once a person attains like jhana, the mind becomes bright. He's supposed to go into seclusion for another 12 years. Sometimes a person, once you attain something, you're too eager to go and teach and all these things, you cannot make progress. So, any other thing? Yes. Right view is the most important. Sotapanna is the most important. That's why you find, like the case of Devata, he attained all the 8 jhanas and he had psychic power. And his psychic power was really good, so good that the prince Ajatasattu was totally fascinated, taken up by him. But in spite of that, even though he had all the 8 jhanas, because of the ego, he lost all the jhanas and went to hell. So these states of mental clarity, psychic power and all that, they are not as important as the stages of Aryahood. Stages of the Aryahood, sometimes the books, the Buddha says there are 8 types of Aryans. In fact, there's a sutta where the Buddha says there are only 9 types of beings in the world. Only 9 types of beings in the world. The first one is a Putujana. That means an ordinary being, one who is still in the round of rebirths. And this includes the hell beings, the animals, the ghosts, and most human beings and most devas. So the first is this Putuja, ordinary beings. Then higher than, above that are the 8 Aryan stages. The lowest is the first path attainer. First path attainer. A person attains the first path by entering the stream. And you enter the stream when you get right view. And the way to get right view is to listen to the Buddha's Dhamma. When you listen to the Buddha's Dhamma, and you understand the Dhamma, basically the 4 noble truths, and when you understand that the world is impermanent, and because of that it is unsatisfactory, there's no security in whatever rebirth realm you go to. Even if you go to the heavens, you're there for millions and millions of years, still you have to die. And when the Deva dies, he will think, why is my life so short? Because time is relative, there's no such, there's no thing absolute. That's why learning the suttas, hearing the Dhamma is extremely important, because that is the way to attaining the first stage of Aryahood. And then according to the suttas, once you attain the first path, it takes some time before it turns to fruit. The fruit is Sotapanna. First fruit, Arya, is called a Sotapanna. A person listens to the Dhamma and understands, so he attains stream entry, he becomes a first path attainer. That's already an Arya. Okay, that's already an Arya. But it takes some time before it turns to fruit. When the path turns to fruit, then the 3 factors drop away. When the 3 factors drop away, the 3 factors, the first one is Sakaya Ditti. Sakaya Ditti is identity view. If a person has identity view, then he thinks that the body and the mind is the self. He associates the body and the mind completely with the self. That means he thinks that this body or this mind is I, or is mine, belongs to me, or I am inside the body and mind, or the body and mind is inside me. This body and mind are the 5 aggregates. Body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness. The last 4 is actually the mind. Okay? If a person has eliminated this Sakaya Ditti, then he sees that the body and the mind are ever-changing, impermanent. So he sees that this body and the mind is not the self, but he still has the self somewhere. He still has the self. Only the Arahant has no self. So once a person has become Sotapanna,
And this path must turn to fruit within that lifetime. At the latest, according to Samyutta Nikaya 25.1, the latest when he dies, the path person will become a fruit. But this is unlike the Abhidhamma. In the Abhidhamma teachings, they say when you attain the path, immediately it becomes fruit, but not in the sutta. So, once a person becomes a Sotapanna, he has 7 more existences left in the cycle, rebirths, maximum 7. So, after 7 lifetimes, he must enter Nibbana. So you see, it's so important to attain a stream entry. Once you attain stream entry, you are secure already. You have booked a place in Nibbana already. It's only a matter of time. Also, the other characteristic of an Arya is that you will never be reborn into the woeful planes. You will never be reborn as a ghost or an animal or in hell. But if you have not attained the stream entry, even you attain psychic power like Devata, still can go to hell. That's why it's extremely important to study the Dhamma. So that is the Sotapanna. Now, from Sotapanna to Sakadagamin, how to get? The difference between the two, Sotapanna and Sakadagamin. Sakadagamin is the second fruit Arya. Second fruit Arya. The difference is that the Sakadagamin has reduced greed, hatred and delusion. Reduce. Now, to reduce greed, hatred and delusion, this greed, hatred and delusion is connected with the 5 hindrances. The 5 hindrances. The 5 hindrances are sensual desire, ill will or anger, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. Okay, pancha nivarana. The way to reduce the 5 hindrances is samadhi. Samadhi. When we attain samadhi, tranquility of mind, calmness of mind, automatically the 5 hindrances reduce. Perfect samadhi is defined as the 4 jhanas in the suttas. So if a person reduces greed, hatred and delusion, so to become a Sakadagamin, he has to attain samadhi, which is not perfect. That means either upachara samadhi, or first jhana, or second jhana, or third jhana. Once he attains any one of these, then he can attain Sakadagamin. Now, how to attain the third fruit, Anagamin? Anagamin, according to the Buddha, in the Majjhima Nikaya, you have to have the 4 jhanas. If you have the 4 jhanas, the Buddha says that the mind becomes very clear. So clear that it emits light. It emits light. The whole body, a person with a psychic eye will be able to see the whole body is bright. And then the Buddha says when a person attains the 4th jhana, he understands everything becomes clear to him. The mind is so bright that everything becomes clear to him. He can understand. So such a person with 4 jhanas, when they listen to a relevant sutta, for example, the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, the Buddha's earliest 5 disciples, they listen to the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta and they attain arahanthood. So you must have that condition of the 4 jhanas where the mind is so bright and everything is easy to understand. Then with listening of the Dhamma, that listening of the Dhamma is the vipassana part. The Samata part is the samadhi. Attaining the jhanas is Samata. And then listening to the suttas is the vipassana, because vipassana means contemplation. Once you listen to the Dhamma, the mind contemplates, digests it immediately. The mind is the fastest. There's nothing faster than the mind in the whole world. Nothing faster than the mind. So once you hear the Dhamma, immediately it digests. And that is that contemplation, that vipassana. That's why you find the earliest disciples of the Buddha went to these external ascetics who had already the 4 jhanas. And then sometimes even just spoke one sutta to them. At the Jatilas, there were 1,000 matted hair ascetics. The Buddha impressed them so much that they shaved off their hair and became followers of the Buddha. And then after that, the Buddha taught them only one sutta. Just hearing one sutta, all 1,000 became arahants. So you see how important the 4 jhanas are. So the condition for the Anagamin and Arahant is 4 jhanas. Once they have the 4 jhanas, then they listen enough of the suttas, they will automatically become arahant. They don't need. But if you have jhana, it helps lah. It helps. But it's not necessary. You see, like in the case of our Buddha, the Buddha said in the suttas that in a previous life, he was born as a Brahmin by the name of Jotipala. This is in the Gatikara Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya. And because he was a Brahmin, he had no desire to see the Buddha. He had no respect for the Buddha. But he had a very good friend who was a pot maker called Gatikara. And this man, Gatikara, brought the Buddha to, at that time, the Bodhisattva, Jotipala, to see the Buddha Kassapa. And his friend, Gatikara, asked the Buddha Kassapa to teach this Jotipala some Dhamma, our compassion. So the Buddha Kassapa spoke the Four Noble Truths to this Brahmin Jotipala. After hearing the Four Noble Truths, he must have entered the stream, because after that he renounced his religion and followed the Buddha, became a monk. So definitely he must have attained the first stream entry, the first path. And during that lifetime under the Buddha Kassapa, when he was a monk, he attained at least the first jhana. Because we know that, because the Buddha says after that lifetime he was reborn in the Tusita heaven. And from the Tusita heaven he came down as Siddhartha Gautama. And Siddhartha Gautama, when he was about 10 years old, a small boy, he could enter the first jhana under the Jambu tree. This was stated in the Suttas and the Vinaya. So that means he must have attained the first jhana under the Buddha Kassapa. And if he had attained the first jhana under the Buddha Kassapa, we can assume that he was a Sakadagamin. He became a Sakadagamin. That's why it is evident that a Sakadagamin, when he comes back as a human being, that is his last lifetime. He must enter Nibbana. That's why even though Siddhartha Gautama had such a good life, he was born into a rich family, he was young, he had just had a beautiful wife, etc. He forsook all that, he renounced everything to become an ascetic. That can only be because he was a Sakadagami. His time for enlightenment was due. So he struggled by himself and attained enlightenment. Okay, I think we can end here tonight.